Our farm here was actually started by my father and his brother. It's kind of a love child of their father, so my grandfather, who experimented with blueberries in the late 60s and early 70s and really had a passion for any crops that would help Georgia advance, in agriculture. I've worked in it my whole life, but in 2013, I came back full-time after going to college at the University of Georgia for a degree in agriculture with applied economics. And it's been a good ride. Normally freezes, it's typically some type of freeze event every year. It may only catch 5% of a crop, which normally isn't such a huge problem. But the freeze of last year, so that would have been the 2017 freeze, was devastating for several reasons. The biggest was because we had a warm winter that all the blooms, all the bushes progressed a little faster than they should have. And so what that did was, instead of experiencing a freeze on March 16th, it was like having a freeze on April 16th, And today's the 18th of April, correct? And we've got blue fruit on these bushes. So you could see how that would, a 25-degree freeze like what we experienced last year would decimate anything that is a berry, anything that has a bloom on the tip of it that has a small berry at the bottom. Basically, if it's not closed, it won't survive. What we were expecting as a state last year was probably going to be upward of 105 million pounds of production for the state. And I saw some numbers as to what last year's harvest was, and it was about 45 million pounds. Farm impact, things ranging from us being prepared to hire, let's say 150, 160 hand pickers, and then come back and only need 70 or 65. And so those people didn't have work. And inside our packing house, we should have been trying to hire 55 or 60 people to run 2 different lines over the course of two to 3 months. And instead, we hired 30 or 25 to 30 and ran only a single line. And, obviously we lost the dollars from the fruit, but the whole community, the whole area lost dollars just from the ripple, from the people not spending the money, from the extra people not coming into town that normally would. There's the crop insurance program it's federal crop insurance, but it's all based off of your average yield per year. And if some farmers had young fields that were 4 to 5 years old, and we generally consider 3 years old being kind of the starting point for picking, and we had a freeze the year before last as well, and a partial freeze the year before that. And so they've got 5-year-old bushes that they've never really harvested anything off of, that they can't get adequate insurance to cover what the bushes should be producing. Really, there's only two real options to try to prepare for a freeze. I guess we could say 3. You could build essentially a greenhouse, a cover, for your whole farm. And some people are actually doing things like that. So it's the only thing we can do. You can put in a wind machine, which if you had about a 29-degree night with almost no wind, so you have a lot of settling occurring, and usually there's an inversion up above that, 3 to 5 degree difference, hopefully, about 160 feet up. We've got these fans that are about 80 feet tall that are pitched down slightly, and they rotate and they spin, and they're just stirring up that air. The only surefire way to get protection is to invest in overhead irrigation, which is an expensive and time-consuming process. So what happens is, ice, the creation of ice happens at 32 degrees. And so if you're continuously freezing ice on top of this bush, you will hold 32 degrees. It's just an exchange of BTUs. For ice to freeze, the water has to lose a certain amount of heat. And that heat goes somewhere, and it stays right there in the ice as long as it's continuously making. As soon as it freezes solid and there's no more water to freeze, it will go to ambient temperature, and it'll slowly make its way down into the berry at ambient temperature. The big impact of the freeze, and it was shockingly bad compared to what most years would be.